There are some boxing stories that end with a championship belt, some end with retirement, and some stay with the sport forever. Prichard Colón's story is one of those. On August 13, 2026, the boxing world learned that former Puerto Rican boxer Prichard Colón had died at just 33 years old. His father, Richard Colón, announced the news publicly, thanking everyone who had supported and prayed for his son throughout the years. At the time of this video, his family has not disclosed an official cause of death. But to understand why this news has hit the boxing world so hard, you have to go back more than a decade, because before Prichard Colón became known around the world for one of boxing's most devastating tragedies, he was one of the sport's most exciting young prospects.
My name is Prichard Colón. I'm 20 years old. I'm a pro boxer out of Orocovis, Puerto Rico. My pro record is 2-0.
Prichard Colón Melendez was born on September 19th, 1992, in Florida to Puerto Rican parents. From childhood, boxing wasn't something he simply stumbled into. It was what he wanted. His mother, Nieves, later recalled that even as a young boy, Prichard would tell her he wanted to become a professional boxer, represent Puerto Rico, and eventually become a world champion. His father, Richard, helped train him. Eventually, Prichard left Florida to study in Puerto Rico, where he continued both his education and his boxing career. According to ESPN, he had been an honor roll student in Florida and continued performing well academically after moving to Puerto Rico, even though Spanish had not originally been his first language. Inside the ring, he was developing even faster. He won 5 amateur boxing titles before turning professional at only 20 years old. And once he became a professional, people started paying attention very quickly. Prichard won his first 10 professional fights by stoppage. By September 2015, just after turning 23, his record stood at an undefeated 16 wins, 0 losses, 13 knockouts. He wasn't simply winning. He had personality, confidence, speed, power, and the ability to entertain a crowd. People close to him described him as a natural showman, someone who genuinely came alive whenever he stepped inside a boxing ring. His reputation was growing. Just weeks before the fight that changed everything, Colón knocked out former world champion Vivian Harris in the 4th round, and even Sugar Ray Leonard was impressed. During the broadcast before Colón's next fight, Leonard praised the young prospect's power and particularly the variety in his punches. Everything appeared to be heading in one direction, up. October 17, 2015. Prichard Colón entered the Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia, for a scheduled 10-round fight against another undefeated fighter, Terrel Williams. Colón was 23, Williams was 31. Colón entered the fight 16-0 with 13 knockouts. Williams was 14-0 with 12 knockouts. This wasn't supposed to become one of boxing's darkest nights. It was supposed to be another step toward the top. Early in the fight, Colón looked sharp. Premier Boxing Champion's own contemporary report described him as controlling the distance, landing his jab, and countering effectively. But as the fight went on, it became increasingly physical and increasingly controversial. Colón repeatedly complained that Williams was hitting him behind the head. In boxing, punches to the back of an opponent's head, commonly known as rabbit punches, are illegal. The danger is one of the reasons that rule exists. The back and base of the skull contain extremely vulnerable neurological structures, and fighters cannot properly defend themselves against a punch they cannot see coming. During the 5th round, Colón himself committed a serious foul, hitting Williams with a low blow. Referee Joe Cooper ruled it intentional and deducted 2 points from Colón. The fight continued, then came the 7th round. Williams landed a right hand to the back of Colón's head and neck. Colón went down. This time, the referee penalized Williams, deducting 1 point for the illegal punch. But what happened next would become one of the most heavily scrutinized parts of the entire story. Colón was examined by ringside physician Dr. Richard Ashby. According to ESPN's reconstruction of the television broadcast, the ringside report stated that Colón said he was dizzy and hurting at the back of his head, but believed he could continue. The fight resumed. Less than 5 minutes after going down from the foul, Prichard Colón was fighting again. The 9th round, Colón actually recovered enough to have a competitive 8th round. Then came round 9. Williams knocked him down, then knocked him down again. During the second sequence, another punch landed to the back of Colón's head as he was falling toward the canvas. The bell eventually sounded. Colón made it back to his corner, but his team mistakenly began removing his gloves, believing the scheduled 10-round contest had finished. When they realized the mistake, it was too late. The Virginia Commission instructed the referee to end the fight. Officially, Prichard Colón lost by disqualification because he could not answer the bell for round 10. On paper, it became the first loss of his professional career. But very quickly, nobody cared about the result. "Mommy, I'm dizzy. I cannot see." After leaving the ring, Colón needed help walking toward the dressing room. According to his mother, he leaned on her for support. She asked him how he was feeling. His response would haunt his family for years. He told her he was dizzy and that he couldn't see. As they moved closer to the locker room, his legs became weaker. Then he began vomiting and collapsed. An ambulance rushed him to Innova Fairfax Hospital. Doctors performed a CT scan. They discovered a subdural hematoma, bleeding that had accumulated between the brain and its protective covering. Emergency surgery was performed to relieve the pressure on his brain. Prichard Colón had walked into the arena that afternoon as an undefeated 23-year-old professional fighter. He would never box again. 221 days Colón fell into a coma. Not for a few days. Not for a couple of weeks. He remained in that condition for 221 days, more than 7 months. When he eventually emerged from the coma, the damage to his brain was catastrophic. His life, and his family's life, had completely changed. By 2017, doctors described Colón as being in a persistent vegetative state. He required around-the-clock care. At that stage, he could breathe independently but needed assistance with virtually everything else. His mother, Neves, became his primary caregiver. His father, Richard, continued coming to help care for the son he had once trained in the family garage. The same parents who had spent years preparing their child to become a champion were now fighting an entirely different battle, every single day, and yet they refused to give up on him. Richard said he believed in miracles. Neves continued hoping that one day she would hear her son call her Mom again. Questions that never disappeared. What happened that night also raised serious questions about fighter safety. Could the fight have been stopped earlier? Were Colón's complaints treated seriously enough? Should dizziness and pain at the back of the head have immediately ended his night? Could different decisions have changed the outcome? A Virginia state investigation was conducted. Its 2016 report did not assign responsibility to one individual, concluding there wasn't a single action or failure so obvious that blame could fairly be placed entirely on one person. Colón's family disagreed with how the situation had been handled. In 2017, his parents filed a lawsuit seeking more than $50 million against the ringside doctor and promoters associated with the fight. It's important when telling this story not to turn complicated events into something simpler than the evidence supports. Terrel Williams was penalized during the bout for an illegal punch to the back of the head. Colón also committed fouls during the contest. The referee, the ringside medical response, the organization of the fight, and the subsequent investigation have all been debated for years. But one fact is beyond dispute. A 23-year-old man entered that ring capable of competing at professional boxing's highest levels. He left with a devastating brain injury. The second fight. There is another part of Prichard Colón's story that deserves just as much attention: his recovery. Over the years, his family continued sharing his progress, and slowly there were moments nobody was sure would ever happen. By 2019, reports showed that Prichard had progressed enough to communicate through facial gestures, sounds, and computer technology that tracked his eye movements. He participated in physical rehabilitation. He could pedal a recumbent bicycle. He worked on taking assisted steps. Small movements that most of us would never think twice about became enormous victories. In 2021, the World Boxing Council recognized Colón as an honorary WBC champion, honoring not a title run inside the ring, but the fight he and his family had been living outside of it. Videos appeared over the years showing him responding during therapy, spending time with his family, and showing flashes of the personality people remembered. August 2026. And then, almost 11 years after that night in Virginia, came the news his supporters had dreaded. Prichard Colón had died. He was only 33 years old. His father, Richard, confirmed his son's passing. The family's announcement did not disclose an official cause of death. Tributes immediately spread throughout boxing. The World Boxing Organization joined his family in mourning. WBO President Gustavo Olivieri described Prichard's life as being defined by courage, perseverance, and an extraordinary fighting spirit, while also acknowledging the unwavering support of his family. The WBC and WBA also honored him, with both organizations describing him as a true warrior. And maybe that's the most fitting way to remember him, because if you only know Prichard Colón as the boxer who got injured, you're missing most of his story. He was a talented kid with a dream, an honor roll student, a decorated amateur, a charismatic professional prospect, a fighter who went 16-0 before the night that changed his life, a son, a brother, and for almost 11 years after his boxing career ended, a man surrounded by a family who refused to stop fighting alongside him. The legacy. Boxing is a beautiful sport, but Prichard Colón's story is also a reminder of what is at stake every time two fighters step through those ropes. Rules protecting the back of the head aren't technicalities. Medical examinations aren't formalities. A fighter saying that he is dizzy cannot simply be viewed through the mentality of toughness. Because fighters are trained to continue. They're trained not to quit. Sometimes protecting them requires somebody else to make the decision they will never make themselves. Prichard's story should remain part of that conversation. Not because one tragedy can be reduced to one villain, but because every generation of boxing should learn from the generation before it. Prichard Colón once dreamed of becoming a world champion. He never got the opportunity to finish that journey in the way he imagined. But millions of people learned his name anyway. Not simply because of what happened to him, but because of the resilience that followed. For nearly 11 years after his final fight, his story continued. His family kept him surrounded by love. Fans kept following his recovery, and boxing never forgot him. Prichard Diggit Colón Melendez, September 19, 1992, August 2026. 16 professional victories, 13 knockouts, one life that left a permanent mark on boxing. Rest in peace, champ.